Hi. So for question one, one thing I found moving throughout the play was the use of the Japanese silk smoking jacket. So first, that jacket played kind of a role of forbidden love between Esther and Mr. Marks. Then it was a symbol of belittlement and mistrust. As when Esther gave this to George, George kind of scoffed at it. He wasn't impressed with it, even though she'd worked so hard. He gave it to Mamie, and Mamie was so proud of that jacket. And that was actually how Esther found out that George was cheating on her with Mamie. So that was that just horrible feeling for her. And finally, it was a signal of forgiveness and moving on as Esther gave this back to Mr. Marks. So this play just really tugs at your heartstrings, and the jacket is the main catalyst for this. So, for question two, in this dramatic world, traditional values are just followed to a fault. Each character follows this in their own way. For example, Mr. Marks, an Orthodox Jew, clearly wants to touch Esther, wants to really fall in love with her, but he's unable to because his family in Romania, he's afraid of what they'll think. So he doesn't. Esther wants a husband so badly. She follows traditional values by just working hard every single day. She doesn't really spend frivolously, and she would hope to be loved one day. And finally, Mrs. Van Buren, she knows she's being cheated on by her husband, who also is into opioids, but she seeks a better life than her mother had, so she just holds her tongue against saying anything or exploring her true feelings of love, whether that be with a man or woman. So this just shows that the play followed very traditional values, and no one was truly happy because of it. So for question three, something that I looked up to gain context of was the inflation rate. So I knew that Esther had been working for at least 18 years, sewing in $100 for every single year. So that puts it about $1,800. In 1905, that would be worth $53,165. And George just blew it all in one night gambling. Frankly, this was completely devastating to read. No matter how much money that was in that blanket, it would have been upsetting, but to know that realistically, Esther was very close to achieving her dream if she would have just trusted her own gut and stayed with her own way. It was just really hard to read. It was gone in the blink of an eye. So that was something I looked up. For question four, this play was very moving. This is what I would have to say that this play sought to resist and reinvent what it means to be a Black woman in America. To me, so many different characters represented different meanings. To Mrs. Dickinson, she knew what Esther was getting herself into because symbolically, I think that George represented African American aspirations during society in 1905, while Mr. Marks represented the stubborn societal norms that were resisted. Nottage's intimate apparel represents what so many African women like Esther did everything right. They worked hard, they didn't spend frivolously, they loved deeply, and they were responsible to a fault. However, much like George and Esther's relationship, these dreams are sold short. This play shows the vulnerable side of an African American life in America, and it seeks to redefine the Uncle Tom reputation. African Americans worked tirelessly, some for white families, and this was not the ideal life for anyone. This reinvents the previous stereotype of African Americans at the time. For question five, unfortunately, stereotypes of African Americans still exist in society today. Unlike other ethnicities, they are sometimes judged by the color of their skin, like other ethnicities. So this was really perpetuated by the minstrel shows in the 19th and 20th centuries, where white Americans dressed in blackface, specifically to make fun of racial stereotypes. Though America has come far from these sickening performances, what people don't realize is some of these stereotypes still are occurring today because of the minstrel shows, not because of actual behavior. So it's really unfair and it's racist. What really makes it special is when people like Lynn Nottage are able to take control of the narrative. They're able to tell what story is like from an African American side, not white people being racist towards African Americans. And not only has the suppression of voices been done for centuries, it's deeply wrong and it's terribly racist. So for question six, I think my two questions are, what do you think that each scene was named? Why do you think each scene was named after a corset or a fabric? Do you think that the corsets symbolized anything than women or men for which they are made, or do you believe it was just due to Esther's profession? And for question two, what do you think the purpose of Mrs. Van Buren's character was? Do you see her as an antagonist of the story or a helpless instigator? Thank you.